I've had a great start to my reading year. So, sometime last year, I read this book called The Wickwire Watch. You may have heard of it. It was an SPFBO finalist. We're talking Gaslamp Fantasy. And what The Wickwire Watch is about is essentially we have a group of fugitives. They're called the colonists, and they're on the run because they've been accused of committing a mass murder of another group of people called the Entrians. And the Entrians have like some crazy magical powers. But anyway, we follow the colonists and we follow this young boy. He's not quite an orphan, but he gives off orphan vibes. His name is Inkwell Featherfield. He's a very cunning, sly, very distrusting, but very good thief. And he's a really cool character. But we follow him basically getting dragged into affairs with these fugitives. So what the Wickwire Watch, I enjoyed it a lot. You know, it's a very genre blendy book. There's a lot of different things going on. I think Jacquelyn Hagen's writing is just exquisite. I can go on about how great of a job she does at creating such a wonderful atmosphere in her books. So I enjoyed the Wickwire Watch enough that I was certain I was going to continue reading, and I finally got a chance to do that. So at the end of December, and my first read in January was books 2 and 3 of the Riverfall Chronicles. So that was The Spider Key and The Blue Flames, and both of these books I have to say were like 5 steps above the Wickwire Watch, which was amazing on its own. But yeah, I mean, the Spider Key, like from the get go, I was so immersed in it. I think by this point in the story, I just felt such a strong sense of connection to this very well done found family in this book. You know, you're following these people who have such strong bonds with one another, and her characterization is just so well done that you grow really attached to them. You feel like how much they mean to each other, and that like just immerses you so much. And then her writing, like Jacqueline Hagen's writing, is it's a very atmospheric style. It really brings forth this sense of there's like a slight sense of whimsy to it. There's a strong sense of like the time period. Like we're talking, I don't know, 1800s ish. Like obviously this is a magical world. But then there's also this genre blendy stuff where you have eldritch horror beings and like people with magic, and it's just a really well done series. I think overall it was very well balanced. The Spider Key and the Blue Flames, both of them, I find it hard to differentiate between them because I read them back to back, and they were just so like just really well done. Like they were fast paced, but then there were enough of those moments. Like she really lets you spend your time with the characters, while at the same time there's this strong sense of tension that's just continuously pulling you through the story. So, you know, I find it hard to talk about this too much without like getting into spoilers and stuff. But what I will say is, if you're looking for some really strong indie reads, I highly recommend the Riverfall Chronicles. In fact, to be honest, like if I could sit down with the author right now, I would request, like, listen, Jacqueline, I think you should just retire at this point because you're just making the rest of us look bad. Like if you can write this well, then please just stop. Let us do let us have a chance at impressing people, and you just take it easy. But make sure you finish your series and send me the rest of the books. So I cannot recommend the Riverfall Chronicles enough. I have just started book 4. Super keen to get into it. I think it's a 7-book planned series, and yeah, it's really exciting. I will also add that this is probably one of the best. Well, I say this often enough, but this is a really well done combination of writing style to audio narrators. So if you have a chance to do the first 3 books on audio, highly recommend them. Okay, so after catching up on the Riverfall Chronicles, or I hope to catch up soon, I was also reading The Prophet of Edan by our very own Philip Chase. Whew, man, what do I say about The Prophet of Edan? So, The Way of Edan, I found it is a very classical fantasy start to a story, right? Like you have your farm boy character, and he's basically kicked out of his homeland for whatever reason and goes off on a great big adventure. But The Way of Edan had a modern twist to it, right? Like it was, it may have had those classical tropes, but they did not feel stale in any way. Way of Edan had some amazing battle scenes. It was intense and it was tightly plotted, but it definitely felt relatively slow compared to The Prophet of Edan. The Prophet of Edan, this book was blistering. Like Philip Chase, I have to say, people think this guy is nice. I don't believe it for 1 second. Like there is no way he is as nice as he pretends to be, given just the sheer brutality in this book. And by that I mean like there are some very graphic scenes. Like I don't know. I don't think I would call this grimdark because the characters, for the most part, are very hopeful, even though we get point of views from the antagonist as well. But what I would say is that yeah, there's yeah, if you're squeamish, you know, be careful with the Prophet of Edan. This book was unrelenting in its pace. it grabs you and it just goes. And I think if there was a small flaw, it might be that maybe there could have been moments where you would have could have spent a bit more time with the characters, sitting down with them and understanding them a bit better. But I don't think that was such a big deal. I think generally speaking, the fast pace of this book really served it well, like as a second book. This is not a slog of a second book, as it were. And to be honest, I never expected that. I thought that this series would be a slow burn, or more of a slow burn than it has been. I think Philip has really taken his time to make sure that the pacing and the plotting of this story is like really well done. Like he doesn't waste time, he doesn't waste scenes, right? If you read like a lot of very long fantasy books these days, there's a lot of times where you're like, I don't think we need this scene, or this scene is not adding as much, or it's only doing one thing when you could have had one scene do multiple things. No, Philip Chase is just like, this is a tightly plotted series, and you gotta admire that about this. Um, I think Philip's writing style is something which I've really enjoyed reading. He really truly embraces that archaic sense of prose, wherein his prose, he allows it to build a world for him. And sometimes, like one of the interesting observations I've made about his writing is that he writes like an English professor would, in the sense that it's very proper, right? Like you see a lot of more modern writing styles. Abercrombie, I'm a huge fan of Abercrombie, and it's something which sometimes I have a bad habit of getting into, is we use a lot of sentence fragments. Philip doesn't use sentence fragments. He makes sure his sentences have subjects. Like every now and then you might get a sentence fragment, but for the most part, and then the end result of that is like it could end up feeling a little bit wordier than you might expect or you might be used to, but it really suits this time frame that the story is set in, right? It suits the atmosphere of the vibe that he's giving to this world. Philip takes his time with world building. His world is very well developed. You can tell that there's a lot beneath this iceberg. Like he's really thought it through. He's given each of the different parts of his world a very unique culture. He's given all of the characters unique and powerful voices as well. I think overall, I would have to say the Prophet of Edan, like it genuinely impressed me. This was much better than expected, to be honest, and I had high expectations. So I was thinking that this would be a series which might just go over my head. Like I'm not smart enough. It's gonna be thematically rich. That's not really the case. It is thematically rich for sure, but it's also very accessible. So I think if you are looking for another awesome indie read, definitely give give Philip's series a chance. I don't think you'll be disappointed. I think that this is really something, and I'm very much looking forward to book 3 when I get to it. The final trilogy that I read was the Cicero trilogy by Robert Harris. So this is Imperium, Lustrum, and Dictator. And this series, guys, wow, was this exquisite. I am not actually that familiar with Roman history, so I didn't, like, obviously I've heard of the name Cicero, but I didn't really know who he was or what was going on there. So if you're not familiar, Cicero was a statesman. So he was a Roman senator right at the end of the Roman Republic. So essentially he was one of the people trying to hold the Republic together when Julius Caesar came into power, and then everything that happened afterwards. And this trilogy essentially is written as a framing narrative told by Cicero's slave slash secretary named Tiro. And Tiro was essentially like a very close confidant of Cicero. I think it's like slave, but not in the way that you might imagine. Like they were essentially just always together, and Tiro would follow Cicero around and take notes on his speeches and stuff like that. And Cicero, if you don't know, was known for his orations. So he was known as like a great speech giver. So yeah, like this trilogy, like the first book essentially follows Cicero's entrance into politics and everything that happens there, how he rises to power. Book 2 continues that into his consulship, and then book 3, by the name you can guess, Dictator, it is the fall of the Roman Republic. So we're talking about Caesar coming into power, and then Caesar's, what happens with him, and then Augustus after that, and all that. So historical fiction, just exquisitely done. I was so, like, the writing style, like Robert Harris does such a great job of just evoking the sense of the Roman Empire and Roman times. And then just like by the end of it, like the political drama, like man, the politics in the Roman Senate. And like I feel like this is pretty historically accurate as well, because I was I found myself studying a lot about that period of history, and like like Robert Harris essentially just took the exact same things that Cicero was doing, and like basically colored in around the sketches to make this book. And I have to say, if you are looking for historical fiction written just wonderfully, then definitely check out the Cicero trilogy. Yeah, that's been my reading so far this year, and I have to say it's been awesome. January, what a good start. I am now reading book 4 of the Riverfall Chronicles, and I think I will be listening to Shadows of the Apt by Adrian Tchaikovsky next. I was thinking I wanted to read um, for January. I wanted to read Janny Wirtz's books, so Wars Rise and Shadow, but I kind of found myself in this place where I've started to write a lot more again, and I feel like just the density of her books is not where my head's at right now. I don't think I'd be able to truly appreciate what's there, and I think I'd probably just get burned out because my head is too full of words. So, on that writing note, if you don't know, if you haven't checked them out, I have these two books published here, Riven Earth and Sundered Moon, and recently I've been getting a lot of feedback. I've been getting a lot of, I mean, it's been doing well for sales and stuff like that, and I'm just so appreciative to everyone who gives my books a chance. It honestly means the world to me. So for those people who have read my books, I decided I would write a companion novella. So this companion novella, it's more or less done. I'm doing a few more rounds of edits. I'm getting some amazing beta reader feedback, which is being integrated into it. But I think overall, I'm very happy with this companion novella, and it's like an optional tack on. Like if you read the series, you enjoyed it, you can read this novella. It's kind of cozy, but also kind of grimdark. And if you read this novella, you just get to spend a bit more time with these characters, and it's my way of saying goodbye to this world because in addition to this companion novella, which I'm kind of in the final stages of editing on, I've also started writing a new series, and I'm very excited about that. And it's such a different style, and it's great to be in that place where after I finished the first two books, I just felt so burned out that I couldn't imagine writing again for a while. But now I'm at that point where I'm just very excited about it. Like I want to just get down and start typing away, and the story's just coming very naturally. And it's funny because I tried my best over the winter break to plot it. I was thinking like, okay, I have this new story in my head, and I really want to like do my best to do it justice and like build this world and start plotting it. And I started doing it, but it just ended up being kind of boring. Like I was losing the spark that was meant to be there. And then I found like I just gotta write it. Like I just gotta get in this character's head, and she already means so much to me, and I just gotta get going, right? I just gotta put my fingers to the keyboard. Once I started doing that, it just felt like it's flowing out of me, and I could not be happier with the state of it so far. Like I'm only talking like 30 pages in so far, so there's a long road to go. And I think this is like as a relatively new author, like I'm learning to figure out my own process as well. So I think that sort of gardening approach might work a bit better for me, but I also kind of take pauses halfway through. So like I'll write a few chapters and then stop and think about, okay, where is the story going to go from there, and I kind of know what the endpoints are, and etc. etc. So I hope you didn't mind that rather long ramble. Let me know what your reads have been like in January so far. Is this year off to a good start for you? I hope it is. Yeah, please let me know. Drop down in the comments below. Thanks so much for watching. I really appreciate you guys. Have a good day.